Hello folks, I'm Janet Cowan. I'm your local Imperial Valley artist here, retired school teacher of almost 40 years. Back to the art. We are using graphite pencils, and this is what I would suggest that you buy. The regular pencil that you draw with, a little yellow pencil, it's a 2B, and that's a good pencil. The B stands for whatever, but it means soft. That the lead, the graphite, I call it lead. I grew up with lead pencils, but that's dangerous. You don't put lead pencils in your mouth. These are graphite pencils. And this set comes with 8 pencils. It goes from 8B, which is very soft. When you drag that pencil along, let me find my 8B here. When you drag it along the paper, it will definitely turn your paper dark, because lots and lots of graphite comes off. See? And if you have an H pencil, this one was an 8B. This is a 2H, and I can get it real light. And you can go down to, pencils run from 9B clear down to 9H. And your in-between ones are HB and F. That would be your dead center right there. But this is the light side, and this is the dark side. Dark refers to soft, because a lot of the graphite crumbles off when you draw. The light refers to hard, where very little comes off. I can get real light, and even if I were to push real hard, you notice it's a different tone. I can't get it as dark as this one. This 8B, I can get super dark. I can layer it and I can press. There's 2 ways of getting your pencil to work. It's either pressure or layering. Spell layering right. And I do have a handout on that. Where did I do it? That shows the technique. This is what I would use with school. My Generals Kimberly graphite drawing pencils. They're just the best. You can buy a set of 3. So you get light, middle, dark. The middle one would probably be around your 2B or 4B. This might be a 6B, and this one would probably be, it could be a 4H. I can't remember what the set of 3 includes, but you would have a light, a middle, a dark. This one is dangerous to draw with for beginners because they tend to push hard. And if you push hard with any of your light pencils, it can damage the paper. It leaves an impression. Sometimes that's fun. You can do something and then erase it and then scratch over top of it, and you have an embossed kind of invisible light line come forward because it's a depression in the paper. But it's safer to draw with a light touch. So pressure is important. You can get dark with pressure, but it's better to get it with layering. So I have a paper here that talks about that. This is pressing. Say if I take an 8B, if I start out very, very light with just a light touch, you can see I can get real light. And then if I push a little harder, I get a little darker, and a little darker still, and a little darker still. I can do that until I can start really killing the pencil, really pushing hard, until I get some real dark. And you can see how an 8B can give you the whole range. Then down here with this same light B with pressure, this time with without any pressure, but just layering, I can do a light touch. I should sharpen that pencil again. A light touch all the way across. So that's layer 1. Layer 2, I don't get any harder on my pressure. I just use the same pressure. If you're going to draw for a long time, you don't want to be pushing hard. Your hand will get tired, your arm will get tired, your neck and shoulder will get tired. So with a little practice, you can get 10, I have 10 squares in this bar here. You can get 10 layers. See, so with one pencil, you can get 10 different tones. And I'm not pressing any harder. It's just the layering that's going on. Is this the next one? Lose track of which one I'm on here. But each time as I layer, it's going to be getting darker and darker and darker. I don't know if I've skipped one there or what. But you can see. But this is an 8B, and if I were a little better at it here, it would even be darker still at the end. But that's just an 8B by layering. So I probably could, I think I skipped something in here because I could be darker here. But pressure is good at some points, and a soft pencil, one of the B pencils, won't hurt the paper as much if you push with it. But you would not want to push hard with an H, say. All right, let me even grab the 4H and you'll see the difference. All right, this one's a 4H. And I think what do I do with my pencil sharpener here? It's really good to buy a pencil sharpener that has a cage to it that catches your shavings, because you don't want those all over the place. You can buy jars of just plain old graphite powder. So you sprinkle it on and you smudge it on. That's a fun technique too. But with your pencils, this is the pressure. See how light that is with a 4H? And if I go, I press a little bit harder still, a little bit harder still. And this is pressure now, not layering. But by the time I get to the last square, I'm having to really push, and no matter how hard I push, I'm not going to get the darks that I got with the 8B. Like, I'm kind of killing it now. If I have to be careful, or I'll pop the lead. But can you compare the difference there? This 4H will always be on the lighter side, and by the time you're pressing this hard, it's going to be damaging the paper. So instead of pressing hard with a 4H, you move up the line. You can go, remember, from 9H, which is soft, clear up to a 9B. A 9B, this one's an 8B here. But you can get up to these high Bs. You don't have to use much energy or pressure with your hand. It's much easier on your body, and you can draw for a long time and still get these super darks. And here, and you're not damaging the paper. Here you're damaging the paper. All right, so now if I try pressure, or excuse me, layering, I'll just do a few here. If I go down the line, very light pressure and then darker pressure, you know, because I'm pushing a little bit more. And I'm pushing a little bit more. But, oh, no. I'm trying not to push. What am I doing here? I get in my right brain and I can't use words right. I'm layering. This one's pressure. This one's layering. And if you layer using the same pressure, I was beginning to push there. I get to talking, I can't think straight. Art is done with your right brain, which is your nonverbal side. Sometimes I can't talk straight once I get to drawing. But you see, even with my layering, I'm not getting very dark. Whereas with an 8B, when I layer, I can keep layering this, and I can eventually get a real dark. Without using any pressure. It just gets layer upon layer upon layer, gets darker. It's easier on your paper, and then if you want a little bit darker, then you can begin to push if you want, but you don't have to push as much to end up getting the same type of blacks. So that's your General's drawing pencils. They're different makers as well, different brands, but these are excellent pencils. They they last a long time, and they have a tool on the end called burnishing, where you can rub over top and make that shine. If you were drawing a padlock or a trunk or a ring or a metal boat or an airplane, you could burnish it, and it makes it shine. I don't know if it comes across. You can see that shine, I think. See how it catches the light?
Yes, it does.
When you draw, most people will push hard with a single 2B pencil. And if you get that kind of shine with a 2B, you're drawing incorrectly. You should not do that. It's killing your arm, it's killing the paper, it's using the tool incorrectly. If you want dark, what you do is get a good set of pencils that allows you to get those B's, that soft graphite, and then you either pressure or layering to get your darks. And it should shine only when you use the burnishing tool over the top. It shouldn't shine just in your process of drawing. So that's something the artists will know, professionals will know, that guy doesn't know what he's doing. So, but if you burnish, that's a whole different technique. Okay, so that's your lesson on pencils. I am going to teach you using, I don't want to use one of the real light ones. I think I'll use one that you can see, a Regro 2B. Regro 2B pencil part because it's sharpened. Okay, real quick, since this is a new lesson here, if you didn't see the others, there's two types of erasers that are really good, and these you can buy black because sometimes this type of pencil, did I have my white eraser here somewhere? It's all right, I'll use this one, but these it picks up the graphite and it begins to look grayish on it sometimes. Doesn't hurt it at all, and it doesn't hurt your paper. But these white erasers or black, or these kneaded erasers, and they come like this, and they get hard as a rock. You have to keep them in a bag and protect them, but to keep that out of the air will dry them out. But they're hard as a rock. But if I were to manipulate this with the warmth of my hand, eventually I would get it softened, and it would. They're supposed to kind of pull like that. These are old; they've been used for years, so they tend to pop apart. But otherwise, they're nice and stringy, but you can see how it's already turning gray. It's like magic. If you want something to get rid of your stress, you can sit here and pull a kneaded eraser. K-N-E-A-D, kneaded eraser, like kneading bread. But I would keep kneading it until it became very soft and nice. And as you erase with it, does an excellent job erasing and getting smudges. 8B doesn't erase very much, especially if you get those darks. But you see how it's all dark there? You just knead, and it's all gone within seconds. And doesn't hurt the eraser at all. What hurts it is if you drop it on the ground and get dust in it, if you get water in it, if you leave it out of a plastic bag, and it dries out. But it's the neatest thing. It's all clean, and you can pinch it to get in there to get little corners to erase. So a kneaded eraser is excellent. These white erasers are also very good. All right, I'm going to teach you a lesson today that one of the best ones I come up with my teaching art through the years, for whether it's little kids or older kids, is drawing a tone ball. If you draw a tone ball, they're fascinating. Most anybody can end up drawing a nice one with a little bit of practice and a few pointers, and they just look like they roll right off the paper. Once you get good with a tone ball, here was a high school lesson. We did seashells, but you apply your knowledge from the tone ball to any 3D objects, and you can make that 3D object look three-dimensional on a flat two-dimensional paper. So it's a fun technique to learn and to understand how light hits a curved object and make that have the illusion of depth. So we will get started. One thing is, don't hold your pencil all these weird directions. I mean, some artists do, but it is best if you can teach yourself. That's why they have these the shaped, I don't know if it's octagon, hexagon, I think there's 8 sides. But you pinch it and lay it on your third finger and pinch, Tuck these fingers under and don't get right down to the bottom. The idea is so you can see what you're drawing, whether you're left-handed or right, and you can see what you're drawing and you have better control. And I used to walk around my art classroom, and as kids were drawing, I would pull the pencil out of their hand. If they were drawing and I couldn't pull the pencil out, or I struggled getting it out, I would know that they were tensing up their arms, tensing up their shoulders, and probably going to be worn out before the hour class was over. So it's much better to hold that pencil just loosely, okay? Hold it correctly with a pinch and a brace, up a bit, relaxed. And to draw well, you learn to lock your wrist a lot of the time. And if you want to show my body here a bit, you draw with your wrist, or not with your wrist. You don't do a lot of drawing like that. You draw with the arm, and you use your shoulder and your arm. See how it's, in the old days, in the big old drafting tables, they would have this thing that latched on with a clamp, you know, and you would draw with it, and it was kind of held that way. This arm would come down this metal bar, and you know, it would do it. So now you have to do it with your arm, but you draw with a locked wrist with your whole shoulder. And it's much more relaxing. You can draw for a longer time. Your neck doesn't get tense, and you end up with a better drawing. All right, well, we're gonna draw a tone ball. If you just sit here and draw a circle, chances are it's not gonna be a very good circle. It'll look egg-shaped and odd and whatever else. So I'm going to teach you how to draw. You lock your wrist, draw with your shoulder, and make sure I don't have any eraser marks there. And you draw an invisible circle slowly. Light, loose, multiple lines. I like mnemonics to teach with because you remember that and it helps you. LLML, light, loose, multiple lines. Say it with me, light, loose, multiple lines. First of all, invisible lines. So I draw my circle, just invisible. I feel it with a locked wrist, drawing with my shoulder, around and around and around. And you pilots out there, you're circling the airfield like we see out here at the Navy base. Touch and go landings, and that's what you're doing, is you're beginning to lay that circle down in the ground. And if you, the poorest drawer out there, if they don't go fast, if they go slow, and if you feel like their circle's getting away from you, draw invisible again. But light, loose, multiple lines. And if you see, you'll end up with a far better circle than this one here. I'll try to do it darker to have it show up just a bit. Okay, so I draw an invisible line, lock my wrist, draw with my shoulder, drawing about the size of a nice hard ball that you'd play baseball with. And I'll try to push a little harder here. The minute you start pushing, though, you can see my circle get a few little lopsides to it. Slowing down so I can get rid of that egg shape that I had going there. But you can begin to see the circle take shape. It's a far better circle than just making a single circle. You just generally, it will not come out circular. So lock your wrist, draw with your arm, hold back in your pencil, hold it properly. Invisible lines first, touch and go like a pilot out there practicing. Light, loose, multiple lines. You do pages of these and you will get very good at making a lovely circle. All right, next thing then is you can start with your H pencils, your real soft ones, and do real light. I'm going to stick with maybe a 2, 4, and an 8, maybe a 6 in there. That way we can get through this a little bit quicker. But in a tone ball, there's different parts to the tone ball. There is the light, there's the mid-tone, and there's the dark. Here you would have a highlight where the light would be coming down and hitting it, and then you would have the darkest core right in there. You have a little bit of what's called reflected light. You can really see it on this tone ball. The light is coming from this direction, and it's hitting here, it's hitting here, it's hitting down here, depending on how wide your source is up here. But once it hits this hard table down here, or this surface, unless it's cloth, which should be soaked in, but if it's a hard surface, the light's going to hit down here and it's going to bounce back. So you get what's called a reflected light. It's very key drawing this illusion of a three-dimensional ball sitting on a surface, because if you get a little bit of that light, it helps you see the ball goes back under there and comes out at you and then goes back around. So you get this contrast between light and dark. That's called contrast. Contrast is what makes things pop. If you were to draw everything with a 2H pencil and everything's real light, it would be like you're drawing a polar bear in the snowstorm and everything's light, you can hardly see it. If you draw everything dark, it's like seeing a dark cat in a darkened room and you can't see anything. That's why you should not, if you're going to go out walking the streets at night, you should wear a white t-shirt so the light reflects off of you to the drivers in the car so you don't get hit and hurt. It's why your airplanes are painted in such a way, aren't they, and so on, so the bad guys on the ground can't see you because you blend in with the dark sky and so on. So, you know, that play of light is very important. Sometimes you want contrast when things when you want them to pop and get that illusion of real depth. Okay, well, I'm going to draw with my pencil box here. It has, in this particular box, they have, I think, is it 9 pencils? 10 pencils. So you have a 4H, and it gets darker and darker and darker to your 8B. I'm going to draw with this range down here to kind of speed things up, but if you really want to do the job, you could start with your 4H in this set and move right on up to do that little bit of that coarse shadow, a little bit of the shadow down here with your 8B. So that would be your other tone, is your shadow down below. And shadows, generally, if it's a smooth ball, they're going to be smooth. Do you see that? And shadows fade out. They'll be real dark underneath where it's hidden from the light, and then it fades out. Okay? And here's the one off the internet here. The others are mine. Highlight, mid-tone. They have a, what do they call that? A coarse shadow, reflected light, cast shadow. So, all right, here we go. I've got my lovely circle drawn. I've got a 2B in my hand. Now, if I were to draw a line straight across this circle, it no longer looks round, it's flat. So straight lines on this the illusion of a 3D on a 2D surface cannot be successful if you draw straight lines. So this particular girl, oh, she was so good. I remember her as a student, Hildy Carrillo. She used scrumbling. Scrumbling is when you just, like this, you just scrumble. Your little pencil goes round in circles and does all sorts of stuff. That's called scrumbling. That's the technique that she did, and the real drawing was just a little bit bigger than this. So this is a photograph of it, and it's done pretty well. This one, a young boy, and he was very good too, Cesar Campos, my student from years ago. Lines, but nothing straight. They're all just little short curve lines. You don't want to go all the way around. Again, that flattens, but he did just little shortened lines like this. And when you go like that, you're like, again, like an airplane, touch and go. You're coming down, and then you draw, and you fly up. So if you were to look at that under a microscope, it's going to look more like this. It's going to be pointy at the ends because it just barely touches down, and then it actually runs on the ground, and then it flies up in the air again. So that's the kind of line you want, back and forth. And again, you draw with a locked wrist. You draw with your arm a lot, and you draw loosely. So with my 2B, I'm going to have my core or my highlight up in this area. The sun's going to come down and hit there. And so my cast shadow will be on the ground down in here. And my coarse shadow is going to sit just the opposite. It's like a smile. Okay, you can picture the little eyeballs right there looking at you. So this is the line here. This kneaded eraser, so good. Get dirty, you just pull it, and it's all clean again. All right, so I'm gonna draw probably with the curved lines, as techniques most people use. Very light, and keep it curved. They're small around here at the start. And when I went around there, I'm really only touching on that part. See? Can't even see what you're doing at the start. Don't worry about getting outside the lines. Your kneaded eraser will take care of that. Keep it real light. Kind of work on the whole thing. Don't try to do just one side. These can take an entire hour if you want to spend the time on them. And the whole thing, you just kind of draw light, even where your coarse shadow is going to be down in there. Remember, light, loose, multiple lines. I'm getting a little bit dark right in there. I can also take my kneaded eraser and just lay it on top. See how it just picks it up if I just lay it down there? That's what's nice about these instead of these. These will give you real sharp lines. So it's good to have both. The kneaded eraser is just, and when I hold it in my hand, I'm keeping it kind of warm, I guess, and it doesn't get hard on me. And I can go up to, I can stop for a moment and we'll draw for a minute off camera, and then you'll see the results in just a moment. I'm going to move to a 4B and then a 6B. Go ahead and stop.